It's a special. It's a special day. I have two people here. The professor, we've been with us a long time. Professor, welcome. Benvenuto. Welcome. He's been done a lot of show with us. And we have Rosa Galeno. Hi. How are you?
Hello.
You've been here too. You did one beautiful show not too long ago about food. Enjoy. Everybody tell me that was nice. That's the words that they use. That was nice. And I say, yes, it was nice. It was good. So today will be better. She's going to talk about, look at this jar. They're all full. And they all come from Rosa hands. She did all by herself. That's nothing there to say come from I don't know where, but this is good. You know, you say, Rosa, tell the people what you use, what you doing, why you doing, and what is it? Because they want to know. A lot of people want to learn these things. They like it.
They do.
So,
they do.
So it's up to you. Talk to them.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to come back and share my information about foods. The foods that you see here on the shelf and in front of us are simple foods that people in days gone by would prepare in hosting the winter months. So when I was growing up in Italy, what would happen is that my mother and my father my mother would preserve, my father would take home vegetables and things from the land, they call it the land. They would come back from farming and would bring home vegetables. Preserved foods is a way of life in most of the southern parts of Italy that I am acquainted with. So growing up, you know, in the winter months, we would have these yummy, you know, fruits and vegetables because it was winter and it didn't grow. So preserving food is a way of life that we grew up with, thinking it wasn't special. We would have basil that would sit for months and not go bad. We would have fresh rosemary that would not go bad. So what is the process? And to step back a little bit and talk about how does one preserve, first of all, there are no recipes because this was information handed down from my grandmother, my mother's mother to me, and I've passed that on to my own children. That's one. So people always say, well, how do you do it? You know, so that is part of the problem, is that it isn't written down. Currently, I'm completing a book that is will help people who have reached out to me.
Beautiful.
To learn how to preserve. And so preserving food, again, is an element of life in preserving the quality and the sustainable piece of what I want to work with. So the first thing that every household would have would be tomatoes. Because you can take a tomato and you can make a sauce, you can make, you know, a pizzaiola, you can make a marinara sauce, you can make a sauce for a tortilla, you can make many, many things with tomatoes. So preserving tomatoes came in several ways. They do it alla pezzettina, alla salsa, alla pomodoro pilata, insomma, you could do it in many, many, many ways. So tomatoes, if you did no other type of preserve, an Italian household, even today, will preserve tomatoes in many ways. And so that's the first thing that I learned how to preserve growing up. And that's the first thing that I taught my daughters. And this year, one of my daughters actually did her own batch. And so she has a comfort zone. And again, how do you preserve it? I am working with CMAP, which is an organization, Southeastern Massachusetts Agricultural Partnership. And what CMAP represents, it wants to preserve, it wants people to learn how to preserve your food, your vegetables, how to make your jam. So CMAP has been instrumental in working with me in hosting lessons and classes on how to preserve food. And that's a good way for people to start. When we started doing this and hosting these classes, we cannot believe the response, which tells you there's a need. People want to learn how to, because they understand the flavor is better. You can use salt, you cannot use salt. It can be gluten-free, your preserves are gluten-free. It can really accommodate any sort of dietary restriction. So as a result, preserving food in today's world is it's a safe way to have foods that you enjoy without compromise. When I was growing up, we preserved foods because it was the only way to have a fresh tomato or a vegetable with a piece of bread in the dead of winter. So that's to give you a little bit of history on who preserves are people who don't have access to fresh vegetables during the winter. And why we preserve is that we preserve because it was a way of life. It's 50 years later, and I'm still preserving the same way that my mother was taught when she was a little girl. Nothing has changed. The steps are very simple, and so therefore I find it very comforting to know that once I have all of my preserves done, I feel that I'm ready for any type of entertaining. I'm ready. It's a comfort zone for me. It's a personal idea in my own mind for what I do with food.
So how long they can stay that way? In other words, if you don't use it the next month.
Exactly. When you preserve food in two ways. You could do, this is a cold, where you cut and you place them in the jar, and you do a water bath. And once these go in a big kettle, and they're covered with water, once the water boils, you let it boil for 30 minutes, and then you let it stay in the pot overnight. And the next morning, you remove the lid, remove the lid, and your jar is cured, okay? And this can stay in your basement or in a cool pantry closet or in a cool space years.
Oh, yeah.
For years.
That long without
4 or 5 years,
without to spoil,
without spoiling. There are different ways of showing that, the jar will speak to you if it's going to spoil. It will leak a liquid. It will have an odor. You just discard the content and recycle the jar. So and again, this is not something that's quick. It's a learning process because it has a few steps to appreciate and really understand. Usually, it takes a couple of efforts to do it. It is a lot of work. Canning tomatoes, canning and preserving is a tremendous amount of work. But the reward of it, when you sit and you're eating a beautiful dish, it's so wonderful.
It tastes fresh.
It tastes summer. I can have summer on my dinner table all winter long, and I love it. And how do you estimate how many jars you put up? It depends on how much tomatoes you use. For instance, for my family, every bushel, which is about 50 pounds, will yield maybe 10 jars, depending on the quality of the tomato. This year was not a great year for tomatoes because it suffered because of the weather pattern. Once we got that second batch of rain in July, middle July, it just was very compromised. The plants were compromised. Then we had the storms, and it was not a great year for tomatoes. So I would say in all of my many, many years that I've been preserving tomatoes for my own family, this was the year that I made the least amount. But I usually make anywhere between 100 and 125 jars in many variations for my family.
That's beautiful. That's good.
And I have tomatoes all, in many different ways all the time.
So you boil the things and then you put inside.
I leave it, right.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
This is the cold pack. So you take a tomato, you wash it, you cut it, and you fill the jar up,
Yes.
and you do a water bath.
Yeah.
But then there's other tomatoes that you have up here, which those are cooked, steamed, and then you take them out and you put them through a Foley mill, a macinata, tutto macinato, and we put it in the jar. We close it, again do a water bath for 30 minutes.
Beautiful. So too bad. Because I remember a story, my mother, my grandma, and my aunt,
Yeah.
each year there was, like you say they save this for the winter. There
Yes.
and one time they have a big jar that boil inside. All over the sun, it looked like I was come back to the Second World War.
Yeah.
They start exploding, and I never forget that story.
They were exploding?
Yeah, the bottle. I don't know, because there was a boil. Maybe they overdid. I don't remember because I was a kid.
Yeah,
You
I
what
know.
mean?
You never want to lose a jar. And in Italy, they did put la salsa passata, which is the one that's
That's
pressed.
right. That's right. See, you know.
Yes, because sometimes they would recycle the caps because they would put the caps,
Maybe it was a
la
rose.
or what they call la guarizione, which is the
That's right. That's
the
right.
rubber.
Yes.
If the rubber seal wasn't secured, you would lose it because air could get in. And if air gets in, see, air cannot get in this. All it is it heats up the jar.
And that's what I think what it was.
Right.
I was too young, but I
Right.
remember.
But see,
the
you remember.
Yes, and now we talk about, remember when we look like, pa, 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 they start to, I say, no way.
Exactly.
If
Yeah,
anybody ran
and
it there, it was
it's
too late.
dangerous.
Fireworks, yes. It
It's
was too-
dangerous.
That's why. It
You
was
can get hurt, yeah. So that's what they used to do. And we used to do the bottles, and then we used to recycle the bottles.
That's right.
Right. But when we came to America, the bottles were absolutely, they're not popular.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
weren't,
No,
so
I
we did the
understand
jars.
the better now, why?
And the jars, have a better, and they've changed over the years. I have some vintage jars. I collect things from my world of foods, and those are old vintage jars that you see there in the back. And
Yeah.
those jars are from the 20s. And they used to deliver milk in those. That was from a
And you
milk
can
bottle.
still use it,
And
yeah?
you could really still use it. I would not, but you could. And you
Yeah.
could see the vintage of the glass that was used. That glass obviously must have lead in it, where today's glass is much more safer.
Well, that's beautiful. That's good.
So that's one version.
And I hope, people watching it, they learn the next, nowadays too late for this year, but next year
There
they
are
can do it.
so many people stop me, and I always make time. And they say, Rosa, how do you? And I love telling the story. They can get in touch with me. I'm more than happy to give them the information. They should really take a class if they can. Preserving 101 is very available today. I mean, we're done for this year, but next year, like CMAP, like I said, cmap.org will set up, and they really want this to be a movement because they want people to eat healthy. And this is one way of doing it. And it's such a proud feeling when you preserve, when you do the simple tomato. It's very, very versatile.
That's good, very good.
So that's the tomato.
So that'd be another project.
That's another project for another day. And you can never go wrong because you can have the tomato, a couple of years and it's still good. Recently I had a class and we used tomatoes from a jar that was 7 years. We made
No
pizza.
way.
Yep.
7 years?
And you could tell the whole, the way the pulp and the flesh is of the tomato, how it's changed over the years. And what tomatoes were 7 years ago to what tomatoes are today is very, very different. And so I always keep a reference because I label all of my pieces because I'm constantly experimenting.
And yet the sauce came in good.
The sauce is delicious. It was so beautiful. So you could taste just the quality and the freshness of the tomato. And we made pizza at the class that we made the tomato jars. We used heirloom. We used organic tomatoes and we used regular tomatoes. And to talk about the difference, where organic tomatoes will, there's tomatoes with a lot of orange and yellow, and they're beautiful. They just a different color, but their pulp is a lot more. It's more watery, so you want to make a salsa with that, or some other different ragouts or things like
I
that.
wonder how many people who do this. I don't know.
A lot of people
Yeah,
preserve.
they
Yeah,
do, yeah.
yeah. I'm affiliated with a lot of foodie groups, and I'm invited to speak at them, and the people that come to the foodie group meetings, for instance, the locavores out in Kingston, the appetite for preserving food is very, very widespread. People preserve, people put up pickles, they do everything. Except I had one woman come up to me, she makes ketchup. It's not so much that you can't afford the ketchup, it's the fact that the integrity of the product is her own, and that is important to her. And it's people want that control of being able to produce foods that they've grown in their garden, that they've processed, and they can enjoy with their family and friends. And that's so important.
Domestic touch, I would call it, domestic touch.
Yeah, the domestic touch,
things, yeah.
right. They want that, they want that piece of life that they can control. And ultimately, the goal that I want is to be able to have people understand how simple it is to provide your family with this.
And you now request from
Excuse me.
the tomato too. You have everything in here.
I do. My favorite one this year is my cheese peppers or my St. Nick's. And this is the first time I've done them by myself. I've always done them with my mother. And this year I did them by myself because I just couldn't get to see her. And I wish people could smell these. I put up 2 bushels. I know, I wish you could smell this. I put up 2 bushels. 2 bushels yield 275 peppers. That's 2 bushels. I lost, and I felt bad. I only got 240. I lost like 35 peppers. But the aroma, the aroma of the vinegar is very
So
unique.
you have garlic?
Right.
Is there garlic inside?
There's garlic
Like
and mint. My father-in-law's mint. It's
wow.
it's
Oh,
just
wow, that's
beautiful.
beautiful.
I don't know if you can get a picture of this, but this jar in particular, this jar represents a heritage of information for my family. So this is something that we always make. We always make vinegar peppers, and it takes a couple of months to cure. So these, if you ate the vinegar pepper now, it's not ready. So what happens is this pepper needs to be, just the color is just beautiful. It needs to cure, and it's curing in the mother. So again, like the tomato, we have what we call la mamma dell'aceto. And it's that, if you have vinegar that sits for a very long time in the basement, after years, you'll see a gelatin base. That's the fermentation. That's like a liqueur. That's gold. You don't throw that away. A lot of people don't know how to incorporate it. So my mother, when we came from Italy, she started her own mother from vinegar that she brought over from Italy. She made the mother after years. And when I got married, I got some of her mother. And I'm married now 23 years. So for 23 years, I have the mother of the vinegar. And so the smell, the aroma of my vinegar is similar to my mother's because I add other vinegars to it. And what happens is it gives the flavor to the peppers. And that's what makes each household different.
This is a beautiful story.
So, it's very motherly, it's very maternal, this whole thing of preserving foods, because it represents my family. We make il vino cotto, we make that ourselves. So the vino cotto is a cooked wine, and we make a special stuffed pepper that's on our table for all the holidays. But we have to do the vinegar peppers this way in order to be able to make them for the holiday season, especially Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, and Christmas Day. And my mother makes the vinegar peppers. She has her own way of making it, and she always, she says she doesn't do anything special, but I know she does.
Explain to me sometime, I don't know what it is. They become soft. After
Correct, yes.
All right,
These
why?
will not, right.
Why?
Thank you for asking. So the reason that they become soft is because everyone has learned how to do their vinegar peppers, and everyone has it the perfect way. My vinegar peppers are still crunchy after a year because the solution for the vinegar is I let it come to a rolling boil, ratio of half and half. In other words, a gallon of vinegar to a gallon of water with some salt. And I let it come to a rolling boil and let it cool on the stove, not cheating by putting ice. I let it cool on the stove. And as it cools, what happens is it solidifies. It becomes its own. the vinegar that I use is a white vinegar plus the mother, which is the caramel color that you see. And what happens is once that gets too cold, it has to be cold, and you fill your jars with the vinegar peppers, then you put the cold solution over your peppers. A lot of people will put a hot solution on the peppers. Well, if you put something hard in something hot, what does it do? It cooks it. Right. I don't want to eat a cooked vinegar pepper. So I'm going to brine it. I'm going to let it stay in the brine in cold. You see, it's cold. You hear the crunch?
Yeah.
Can you see the crunch? That's the crunch, but they're still not ready. But that's the crunch. You see the crunch? And that's how they're going to stay, because the solution for this was cold, not hot. So if you a lot of people put a hot solution into this. And I'm saying that no, don't do it. And a lot of people always ask me that question, and they always have good luck once they do the ratio, and they let it cool normally, naturally, don't hurry. That's the other mistake, is that everyone wants to do it quick. And one day I'm going to do everything. You cannot.
Yeah, but I forgot already what you did. Tell me, you're going to be on your book or what you?
Yeah, it'll be in the book, and I'm so excited
okay.
because people ask me all the time, how do you do this, how do you do that? And I think it's, I have several books in the making, but this one will be done probably in the spring and ready for next fall for availability. So that's the vinegar. I mean, these are the two things.
Remember.
Then you'll remember. But these are the two things, the tomatoes, and you're going to do the vinegar peppers, people have all the time. And over the years, you just learn. You learn, preserving basil, for instance. I've taught this so many times. You could do this. Anybody can do this. I just taught it to a bunch of senior citizens, and they gave it to their kids when they went to visit them at Heights Crossing. So my very dear friend, Mr. Olson, lives at Heights Crossing. So he invited me, his chef at the residence, invited me to go there and just, do like a lesson with the senior citizens. So we did. And we had all these Italian people that lived there, and they were asking me all sorts of questions, and we put up a preserve. We had bunches of fresh, beautiful basil from Gary's farm. And you know what? We preserved it, and we filled up these jars. And they said, we'll never fill this big bunch of basil in a little jar. I'm like, yes, you will. And we compressed it, and all it is taking your basil, a little salt, little salt, and we fill the entire jar. This is from September 19th, this one. This one is rosemary, done the same way, but it is July 23rd. You have to keep them in the fridge, obviously, because of, but the salt doesn't melt, and it keeps it. And then when you want fresh rosemary over fish or tomatoes,
yes,
or potatoes, roasted potatoes, it stays. And it's, again, this is preserving. So this is rosemary from my garden. And when you cook with it,
it's fresh.
It's fresh, right. And so again, it's very simple 101, and the goal is to just, if you're going to grow this beautiful rosemary, learn to use it. So that's rosemary, and basil, which is so great. Another one that I do is, and I have to because my daughters love it, my kids, so you preserve things that your family eats. Roasted peppers. These are roasted peppers, and they're pretty. I mean, these are just, again, I try to buy local because I want that freshness, and I fire roast them on my grill. I put them in a bag, let them, kind of peel.
Yeah.
They kind of, all the moisture makes the skin and the pepper kind of separate, and then I peel them, and I don't rinse them under water. I painstakingly take the skin off, and then I put it in here. And the liqueur, the water, the fluid that you see here is the fluid that the pepper makes itself. And when you open these up, they're not going to be mushy, because I don't cook and burn them when I'm preparing them. I just let them kind of get roasted. And I put this in a brine for 15 minutes. Okay, a water bath, just like I did the tomato. And, Thanksgiving, Christmas, I want roasted peppers. I open this up and I condition them. Like when I say condition, you're putting olive oil, some parsley, fresh garlic, a little oregano, and, and salt, and you can eat it. There's no salt in my foods. So it's very...
You make it sound so easy.
It is easy. It is easy. And that's the thing, is if you take the anxiety away from cooking foods for your family. If I have my pantry full, if I have my pantry full, I don't get excited about or nervous or anxious about having people over for the holidays, because it's part of my food repertoire. It's what I cook and have and serve for the holidays. So it's easy for me to just go to my pantry, pull it, and open the jar and serve it. And it works. It's so easy. And I think that's what people are amazed when they ask me, or they just chat, or I have friends that call and email me and say, Rosa, how come it's so easy? I said, because when you don't have too much rule incorporated to a step, and it's very simple, and you're shown, all of a sudden the anxiety goes away, and you say, I can do this.
Yeah. Make me understand one thing. You say you don't use any preservative, you don't use all of that stuff, and they stay good.
Yes.
Why the corporation or some company uses all the...
Preservatives?
Yeah, all that stuff, they say it's not good for your health.
Right.
But to keep long, how long they can say? How long?
Right.
You know what I ask?
Yes, the average lifespan of anything that comes in a can. I mean, even today in Napoleon times, that's hundreds of years ago, once a year, the food bank that Napoleon had for his soldiers, one can is opened and it's analyzed through a panel of the culinary world. And it's still edible. No one has died, because it's preserved correctly. I don't think anybody would eat it, but nobody would die, because the tin inside is probably eroded. The average lifespan of a can of food is, geared for 10 years because of the population. We have millions of people to feed. So corporations, when food is processed, and the network of food and the amount of energy that it takes to prepare foods and produce foods is a whole, we could do a show just on the food and how it's preserved for mass markets. It's very different. They have to protect the consumer, who is the end user of the product. So they need prohibitors. They need to use all sorts of helping agents, and lots of sodium, because sodium is a preservative. Without sodium, for that massive amount that they have to produce and the many steps, they need to have certain properties in. Plus, I'm doing a bushel. They're doing millions of bushels at a time. I mean, a packer could make, in an hour and a half, 10,000 jars, where it takes me all day to make a bushel, So the fast pace, and when they pack it,
So the mass production?
Mass production will always yield cause and effect, because we need to protect the consumer. And you're getting tomatoes, let's say you're talking tomatoes, from California, from Mexico, from different parts of the country. New Jersey grows a lot of tomatoes. So you will, you have to clean them, you have to process them, you're not getting it from one location. So a lot of pieces need to go into every jar. And in order to protect the consumer, they need to put these, certain enzymes and, agents in there in order to make the food last. And also, people always purchase with their eyes. When you go to a shop or you go to a store, if this doesn't look good, guess what? I'm not going to buy it, because I buy with my eyes first and then my taste bud. So I think that in order to keep things vibrant, they need to use, the agents that they do. Citric acid is not a bad thing. You know, it's just a citric that they use, but there's different variations of it. So in the food world, know for sure that they are protecting you.
I like it to be protected.
Yeah, it's a
You know what I
good
mean?
thing. It's a good thing because their goal is to make sure that your food safety rules are in place. You know, these facilities who produce foods have very strict rules that they have to abide by. And there's inspections, on-site inspections. A lot of them, you know, when you see these awareness, listeria, for instance, a couple of weeks ago, or it's going on still with the cantaloupe, it's huge. You know, these are things that can threaten a person's life. So the Food and Drug Administration protects you. The meat and poultry world protects you. Very, very difficult. Inspectors protect you. The dairy world protects you with inspections. You know, altitude. You can't sell raw milk anymore. You have to sell an homogenized milk. You know, so all of these things are designed to protect food. That's for the mass market. When you do preserves for the home, that is different because you will be an experienced person based on just the way that I was taught, and we're still here 50 plus years later, we're still doing the same thing. My mother's...
You mentioned don't put a salt on this, but on the commercial one,
right,
it's full of salt.
full of sodium.
Yeah,
Right,
sodium, yes.
and it's an agent. It's to keep it going for, like I said, 10 years,
Yes,
8
right.
years, 3 years. It depends, you know. I don't keep my preserves long. I mean, I make enough for the year because I know what my yield is going to be for consumption. I like to make it every year, but I do have jars that I've had, and I have fun with it, that it's been able to sit on the shelf for a couple of years, and I'm like, wow, it's still good.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Good. You get
but that's a good question though, because people are concerned more and
Yeah,
more
that's
today.
right, a health
And
one.
sodium is the biggest culprit. A lot of people who are cardio, you know, patients, or they're concerned about the salt, you know,
Yeah, no.
sodium is an issue.
So I
So
was read an article just this week. It is say in Italy, it's beautiful because the food is
fresh.
good, fresh, but it's more people who put weight because in some of the stuff they eat is a lot of sodium, and that's come to my mind. As you said,
sodium and also a lot of the
they
obesity.
eat a lot of salt. in
A
other
lot of
words.
salt, and they eat a lot of fats. And you know, in my
Yeah.
mind, when I think of a menu or a meal, it's protein, fiber, and fat. Fat is always the lowest component. Fiber is
Yeah.
always the highest component. And in Italy, I know for a fact that the obesity, you know, diabetes is on the rampage.
Yeah.
Huge. You know, diabetes is prevalent, and you know, the solution is,
And that's what I
you know,
was.
take the medication.
That's why
Where
I-
here
I-
we're fighting
I
fighting
tried-
not to have
now I
that.
understand it better, but I try to understand if it's so good, the food, so on and so forth, everything is the best, and all over the sun you have this problem,
Yeah.
the salt.
Salt.
So-
Salt is a
so-
culprit because
so
it's a
try
it's
to
a
avoid-
preservative.
Try to avoid that much salt. So you have more stuff here to talk
I do.
about. You
This
can
one-
Keep
right.
it talking.
Well,
because
this
it's
is
so
pre-
interesting.
Well,
I
this
stay
is-
quiet. I don't
No, no, I'm glad. This is prosciutto, and this is from 2005.
Prosciutto?
Yeah, this is prosciutto in the oil.
Wow.
So I will.
Looks amazing.
It's prosciutto. Yeah, this is. And it's prosciutto di Parma cured in imported olive oil, and that's it. So if we opened this, we would be able to take it, slice it, and eat it. And the oil I would then use to make pasta fagioli. And with the flavor of the
Oh, really?
of the prosciutto will be
Oh,
in
yeah.
that, yeah. And I would just saute onions. So this jar right here is something that Italian pantries I grew up in. We also do la sopressata like this, the
Yes,
hard
yes,
salami.
yeah.
As long as the casing is off, we want to take the casing off. You can let it sit in here. This prosciutto has been cleaned, brined, prepared, salted, and then I had a little bit left over, and it was going to go dry. So I put it in the oil so it'd be nice and moist, and we'll have this for Thanksgiving. This is from 2005. I've had more, so yeah, it's fine.
It look good, and
Yeah.
I'm sure it tastes good.
It's yummy. It's so yummy.
Another antipasto then.
You have this
Use
all for
another
antipasto, right? The other thing I'm very excited about is this is eggplant. I want to show you. This is just beautiful. Is this eggplant? Yeah, it is. This is eggplant. Can you get that shot right there? This is marinated. Yeah, this again is a preserve that you would have just with a piece of bread. See, that's a great shot. And what happens with this is the quality, the ingredient of the quality is the best oil that you can get your hands on, the youngest and freshest baby eggplant, and mint, which I grow myself, fresh parsley that I buy from a local farm, garlic and hot peppers, and salt and vinegar. Those are the ingredients that I use throughout all of my preserving of the foods. And it takes a little, finesse. You need to know the steps. But again, it's something that you can make and enjoy all year long. Those last about 1.5 years, and they're crunchy. You could do the same thing with green tomatoes. I take the tomatoes right there. Orazio, can you just get that right there? Yep, that. These are green tomatoes. These are from this year. And I do them the same method as the eggplant. And they're just, you can just, it's like eating a piece of meat. So yummy. So that's,
Nice.
yeah, those are the green tomatoes.
Very, very good, very good. This is very informative for people who
I
really
hope
want
so.
to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
it's
you
not
wanna do
complicated.
Things and,
And this one is La Giardiniera.
yes, I know the
Giardiniera.
giardiniera.
And this is
This
made,
looks good.
this is not with just the vinegar. So this
just
is,
the vinegar.
it's not just vinegar. It's already ready to use.
Combination of
Right. So this has carrots, celery, and baby eggplant. And again, it is all from all my preserves are from a local farm. I buy as much organic as I can because they do taste
Yes,
better,
yes.
and they just have a wonderful flavor to them. The thing is, when you're doing this in particular, the giardiniera, when it's picked, and my farmhouse will call me and say, Rosa, I have your carrots, I have your celery, come and get them. That day, I stop whatever I'm doing, and that's what I'm going to do. Because I don't want them to get old. I want to use them the day that I get them. They're picked that day, and I make it that day. And this is a 3-day process to make. To make this jar takes 3 days. It's, from start to finish.
Yeah.
From preparing
Preparation is enough,
yeah, and
yeah.
then closing the jar. And all of this is curing. This will be ready by the end of, by Thanksgiving or in Christmas, these are going to be ready. And this is all done in my, on my schedule based on availability. For some reason this year, everything was late. Everything ran late. I just finished my last preserve, which is celery root, and using the heads. It's called ugly celery. A lot of people don't know what to do with it, but I take the brush, the toppers of the celery, and I make a salad, and it's brined. And that's a salad that stays in the jar in the refrigerator all year long. And I have crisp celery salad that I can add to a lot of other foods that I make. And then the celery root I keep in a cool place in the basement, and I take one, clean it, and then I chop it up and I use it for a salad. And it's just yummy. I make a citrus. So in the middle of winter,
Making me hungry.
I'm making you hungry all the time. So this is to show you that, you can eat summer any time of the year. The other piece is that this is a bread and butter pickle, and a friend of mine who is a diehard like myself, she has a packing company, and she makes bread and butter pickles, the peaches and the pears, and they are so beautiful and fresh. She has orchards, and she grows peaches, pears, And so I didn't have to put them up this year. I just got them from my
Yeah,
friend.
that's-
Yeah,
that's
and
good.
they're just as good as mine. And she also did beets, baby beets. And they're just so delicious. So I didn't have to do those because she has a business where she offers those. I could buy them and I did. But I trust her because she would put them up the same way that I would, which is great.
I know you say about the oil you use, the extra virgin olive oil.
Right. I brought something here. In Italy, this comes from Italy. It's the anchovy, the le filette,
Yeah,
which
yeah, I know.
I could just eat with a piece of bread and cheese. It's so yummy. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
over salty. In Italy, if you travel to Italy, you will see fields and fields and fields of sunflowers because they use sunflower oil for all of their preserving. Or they'll do a mix of sunflower oil and olive oil. Not extra virgin because it's too hard. It's too strong, troppo forte.
strong,
Troppo forte. So they will use, the sunflower seed oil and mix it with a little bit of olive oil. And but what's coming out of Italy into the U.S., I would say that 90% is in sesame, olio di semi, the sunflower oil. And it's great. I like either or, but if I'm going to make preserves, I will not be using sunflower oil. I'll be using olive oil.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
You know,
so these are
this-
very good.
You travel through Italy and you see for mile and mile. One day I was thinking, it's too many. What they do?
That's
with
what
so
that's
much,
what
you
they
know
do.
what I mean?
Right, that's what they do. They will
Yeah.
use sunflower. I mean, you were just in Italy. Did you see all the sunflowers?
This time to.
Well, you were not in Italy. You were in Sicily. You were not inItaly. You're Sicilian.
I fly over. I
You
flew
flew
I
over,
flew
so
over there, flew
all right.
over
So
there.
you didn't visit Italy. You went
No,
to
no.
Germany and to Sicily.
Yeah, it's all off season. Off
I
season.
just don't know. I don't think you're Italian. I think you're Sicilian.
Which
I
means,
am a Sicilian.
Well,
You
which-
too? Oh.
I'm proud.
which means we are different. Ethnically, we are different. true.
Oh yeah, we're very
You asked me the
different.
question. Let me answer the question.
Go ahead.
We are ethnically different because we reflect the many civilizations, the Mediterranean, Eastern Mediterranean. Remember there, they created their own communities like the Phoenicians.
Like the Venetians?
Phoenicians went to Northern Africa, North Africa, where is Tunisia today, and founded the famous city of Carthage, which eventually became a powerful country. And when they fought Rome, and then they fought Rome, overwhelmed them and destroyed the city. But they, during the period of really splendor, let's call it a period of splendor, they were able to go to the island. They tried to take control of the island of Sicily, but they were limited to the western part. They founded the city of Palermo,
Yeah.
the Phoenicians. Then the Arabs founded other towns, other communities, the Arabs. Oh yeah, the Arabs, different culture, different language, different religion, different, just about everything. And they blended with the Sicilian. They found the modus vivendi fantastic. And they one learned from the other. When they discovered the Arabic numbers, the numbers we use
Yeah.
today, they were afraid to go up to the peninsula. They said, and Cecilia said, don't worry, we take care of that one. And they were the first math teachers, the Sicilians.
Really?
Yeah, and they were all over Europe. They were,
I did not know that.
Yeah, and this it goes on and on and on. But really, people keep saying Italians are one ethnic family. No, they're not.
They're very diverse.
They're diverse,
So-
yeah.
Professor, you keep talking. I want to smell this.
This is
Does it talk?
these are the
What's that,
jams.
marmalade, the marmalade?
Yeah. This is. I call it jam jelly.
Yeah.
My jam jelly. It's not jam and it's not jelly. It's kind of in between. And this, believe it or not, two different colors, right? Two different colors. Both are peach, believe it or not.
Both the peach?
Yeah.
Okay.
Different blends. Okay, so this one here, this one, is peaches, yellow peaches and the white peaches
Okay.
with a
relish.
little bit of maraschino cherries and citrus.
That's the trick.
Maraschino,
So,
that's a difference.
This
It makes a
is
difference.
just the yellow peaches cooked alone. This is before the rain. This is after the rain. So weather has a lot to do with the quality of a home preserved
Yeah.
food. And that is why as soon as the peaches are out and as soon as they've ripened on the vine, on the tree, I get a call and this year I put up 4 boxes of peaches. It's not a lot, but but I did each box was a different type. I do a 5 fruit. It depends on what my family likes to eat. So what happened was I could not believe the two. It's the same product, but same fruit yields differently.
It's a different color.
I thought it was different fruit.
Altogether, right?
Yeah, that's what I
exactly.
thought, yeah.
Exactly.
Different stage of ripening. different
This
stage,
one,
yeah.
this one is peaches and roasted cherries. So I experimented, and this one is just beautiful too. And it's a little thicker because I make a cookie for Christmas, and this is what I'm going to use it for. So all of this is personal. This is what I use for my family, this preserving. So that's your other product. So
Random
these are
uses, random
so
uses, yeah.
right. So these are all. This is, just a wonderful. It's so elegant. This one is so elegant, and this one is a little more rustic. You could just see. And you see how
It
beautiful
looks so
it was?
natural.
Yeah, and this, even if you open this, you don't have to refrigerate it.
Oh, no?
And all this is sugar and fruit. That's it. There's no pectin. This is the only one I've used lemon in. But I only use sugar, equal weight of sugar to fruit. That's it.
Beautiful. That's good.
And so those are the components of preserving. I did want to go back to the vinegar peppers because I didn't tell you the difference in peppers. You cannot use just one of those green peppers that you buy in the store. These have to be the low flat ones. They look like cheese. They're squished like a little round wheel. And it takes a week to cure the peppers. It takes a week to cure the peppers, and then they'll talk to you. And what I mean is, for a week, you'll be spreading out your peppers on a table with a tablecloth. And you put them one way, and then the next morning you flip them another way. You keep going up and over for a couple of days. As that takes place, if a pepper has a little, worm inside, or if it has some sort of ailment or some sort of, piece that needs to not be well, it will leak. You have to get rid of that pepper. You can't preserve vinegar peppers if they're damaged in any way. So after 4 or 5 days, the pepper that was nice and crisp will wrinkle a little bit like a raisin, and you want that. One, it's more pliable when you put it into a jar. I mean, these peppers barely fit. I didn't have that room. They've shriveled up, And so it gives me flexibility when I'm putting them in jars like that. And then they absorb, and then they come out, and you have to check them and make sure there's more vinegar that needs to be put in. And then at the end of it all, you get a pepper that is flavorful.
That's good.
So you need cheese peppers
It-
or St. Nick's. They're called cheese peppers or St.
cheese
Nick's.
paper?
Right.
Oh, I don't even know that.
I know.
What you do with the guy who like really hot stuff?
The hot stuff?
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Oh, you like the hot. These are string beans too. We have string beans in the oil. Yep, antipasta string beans. The hot peppers are these, and those are the long ones,
The pepperoncino.
the little pepperoncini that are green, and then
Yeah,
they
yeah,
turn
yeah.
all different colors.
Yeah.
This is them, and what you do is you cut them, it's a long pepper, you cut them in little pieces, and you then just sprinkle them with salt and chunks of garlic. After 10 hours, you take the garlic out, and you see all this, expelled liquid, which is from the pepper. You squeeze it, make sure you wear your gloves. You squeeze it, and all this liquid comes out. And you take the dry peppers and you season them with fresh mint, fresh parsley, and olive oil.
And they're still hot. I mean,
They're
it's-
still hot. And you season them, and then you put them in the jar, and you forget
use
about
it
them.
anytime,
And
right?
use it anytime you want. And so you have the hot peppers.
I know, because some people like it really does.
Yeah, I made
that.
I made a lot this year because we
Yeah,
love
yeah.
hot food, and I use
Yeah.
that in my sauce. I use it in everything.
Which is healthy.
Very
Hot
healthy.
food is healthy.
Oh, but for those of you that want to preserve, I suggest that you don't be intimidated in any way. I mean, let me take that back. You might be a little anxious because how do I start? Look for classes. Look to people in your family that do preserve. You may have an aunt that makes the best jelly, or an aunt that makes the best peppers. Someone that you know that does preserving, any type of preserving. When you do that, you're reaching out for a life lesson. The life lesson in my table here is to show you that you can do it. It's not complex. It's complex because you couldn't do all of these at the same time. And nature has a way of giving you its fruit a little bit at a time, so that as soon as I'm finished with one, another one comes up and it's ready. Like I just said, the ugly celery salad is the last thing that I preserve in the year. And it's pretty amazing because then I have all my food menu completed and I'm done.
And you still do the lesson, you do the lesson, you know?
Yeah, what I'm
Yeah,
saying
that
is
was your
that
class or what it- yes.
yes, I do teach, and again, you can reach out to cmap.org and you can get in touch with them. You can get in touch with me, Rosa Galino at Verizon.net. And I live in town, so people see me all the time and always have questions.
And you will be back for another show.
Maybe, if you want me to, of course. I think that this is a great way to show people that food can be healthy, uncompromised, and I really think that with a little effort you can do this.
That's good. Professor, thank you for coming. Thank you.
Invited me. You invited me. I
I
said,
know,
I
but
want to be there.
we'll let the Rosa talk because that's, look, she did some of the stuff I don't even know myself. And I remember when I was a kid, I don't remember the way my family was doing, but now after she talked and I say, oh yeah,
Remember?
you know what I mean?
Yeah, remember,
Speaking
it's the
about
stories.
preserved
Yes,
food,
that's
yeah.
what-
All the stories.
My mother used to do the peppers.
Peppers?
Green peppers. They would last for years, really.
Yep,
They used to do anchovies.
the anchovies, yeah.
My father would buy something like 20 kilos.
Of
something
anchovies.
Like 45 pounds, 50 pounds. And my mother was clean, everything else ready. And then she had containers this way, one terracotta containers. And she would have all these things for that, the eggplants, she was.
And she could entertain, because if she needed something, she
used
would
to
go to
do-
her pantry,
yeah, no, she
get
had
the food, and
she
it
just
would be
offered. She had the
available.
guests, she put it there, they sprayed on different things.
Exactly.
Olive, or sotolio, we used to call it. Yeah.
Professor,
So, yeah.
excuse me, we have only a few minutes. Oh, you have 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
You can keep it talking for a few minutes.
Okay.
But the
Do
only
you know what
thing-
this is?
Huh?
Do you know what this is?
What is for flour? My
For
mother used to-
flour, right.
Yeah.
And
My
la
mother used to-
setella.
Yeah, I know.
La
My
setella.
mother had one of those.
Yep. I think every household has one
Yeah,
of these.
yeah,
and,
All
yeah.
sizes too, all sizes
I
too.
have all different sizes, but these
Ah,
were
I
made
know
for
that.
me by, there's a person in my town in Italy, and he gave me this as a gift. He's at the local market. He's there every
Yeah.
Friday at the mercato, and his name is Serafini Maricoli. And this was he was born the July 22nd, 1925, and he signed it. The day that he signed it, he was 82 years old and 3 days, and he was still making these.
And don't use it because you
Oh,
spoil
this
it.
is,
That's
this is
just
so special.
For
This-
show.
Yeah,
that's
this
right,
is so
that's right.
special. But he made one each for my kids. There's 3 there.
Yeah, I saw that.
You see,
yes.
yeah, and he gave them
Oh,
to
the-
me,
the
and I
baby
use them a
ones.
lot.
The babies for the babies.
Yeah, for the kids. And the thing is that he takes so much pride in making this. And these, again, are crafts, life lessons and crafts.
That's good. Oh, we have something else to talk about
Oh,
here?
the oregano. No, the
There is no more time?
il risotto right here.
Oh,
is-
risotto, yeah.
This risotto is, one, I love it because it's so easy and it's a great breakfast. So this is arborio rice. And if you email me, I'm more than happy to give you the recipe. Or maybe we could put it up on the cable. And it's made with ricotta and vanilla and sugar and eggs. That's it, and a good arborio rice. And it's simple, and it's so delicious.
That was beautiful. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's my
Thank
pleasure,
you.
my pleasure.
Sincere, thank you. You know, the thing is, the problem is, we start to go old, and the food is, I don't know, you can eat everything.
You get old, that's for sure.
Oh, no, no, you, okay.
Right, and so, you know, and again, this oregano is from Calabria, and it's just, I mean, that's what I use in the preserves.
Special like
It's
oregano.
strong in Sicily, you know.
Stronger than Sicily.
We have good
So
ones.
these are the foods of Italy, but we make them here in America, and you can enjoy them with your family. This is preserves that can live today. They can tell a story, and they're part of who you are. It's part of who I am, and
Yeah.
the best thing is,
Culture.
it's a culture. It is a
Culture,
culture.
yeah.
It is a culture.
I went to Calabria about the oregano.
Yep.
In Calabria, they're famous. They produce a special pepperoncini.
Yes.
Some tiny ones.
Very hot.
You smell.
So hot. They're too hot.
It's
sweating.
place where you,
They're
over
too.
there, yeah.
They're almost too hot. You can't bear it.
Unbelievable,
Yeah, but they love hot. They call it la bomba
Not that
in
hot,
Italy.
Not that hot.
It's too hot.
They
Like,
explode when you go in.
but they have la bomba. They've called la bomba, and
That's
it's
right.
like it's hot,
That's right.
but it's almost too hot.
Okay, that's
So
all right.
this
You
is
like it, why not?
there's your repertoire. Vinegars. What do we use to preserve with? We use salt, vinegar, water, heat, and spices, and we're done.
You use the wine, no, just vinegar.
Well, vinegar is wine based.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, and no other
Wine
stuff.
No.
So,
Okay.
the time is to say ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao a tutti.
Arrivederci.
Grazie.
We should
and
say
thank you.
arrivederci.
Arrivederci,
to the
that's
next
okay.
one,
That's
next
okay
show,
too.
yeah.
That's all right.
It was
Say
my
ciao.
pleasure. I'm glad.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Keep watching.